Never judge a book by its cover. Or should you? Welcome, true believers. I'm Jesse D'Angelo. Thank you for tuning in again for Storytime. Today, I'm going to be talking about book covers, something near and dear to my heart. As many of you know, I'm an illustrator. I do all my own book covers. I'm a big fan of art in general, and I love a good book cover. And that's one of my criteria in picking books. And something that a lot of people won't admit, it's everyone's criteria in picking books. Whether you're walking through a bookstore or you're scanning online and you're looking for the next book that you want to buy, the first thing you see is that book cover. You're either in person holding it in front of you, or you're scanning through the list. And sometimes you've got just a little thumbnail to look at, and that little thumbnail has got to hook you, draw you in, and make you want to see more, right? So people talk about like, oh, don't judge a book by its cover, and that's true. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but you should judge your interest in the book by its cover, because the job of a cover is to grab your interest and make you want to read more. Now, what's inside the book, that's up to the writer, but as far as the cover goes, it is important. It's paramount importance. I mean, that's what sells the book. Right? That and the author's name, if you've got a name like Stephen King or something. Doesn't matter how good your cover is. Your name takes up 3/4 of the cover, and that's enough to sell the book. But for most of us, like indie horror authors like me, we got to have a good, compelling cover that really hooks you, right? So I have a few examples here of some horror covers, well, not just horror, but just covers in general that I think are really good, and a couple that I don't think are so good. Right? I'll start with a couple that I don't think are so good. And this goes back to don't judge a book by its cover, because these are actually really great books, but I'm not super stoked about their covers. This one I read recently, The London Vampire Panic. I don't know where you're going to see it best, but I bought this in a used bookstore for $1. And that's the only reason I bought it. And I was just looking through the horror section, looking for the cheapest prices, and I saw this like, oh, it's a vampire horror novel, it's $1. Sure, I'll get it. But if it was like a full price book online or in a major retail bookstore, and I saw this cover and it was like $15 or something, I wouldn't have bought this book. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's just a picture of the London skyline. The title itself, I don't know, seems a little, I don't know, is it cliche, or it's just The London Vampire Panic. It's not that compelling to me. There's nothing about the design that's impressive. There's no like artistic elements. It's just the London skyline, with red, and I mean it's fine, but it's not like, come read me, right? Next, I've talked about this book before on a previous episode. One of my favorite books, Stinger. I love this book. However, looking at the cover doesn't really do the story justice. The creatures don't look like this. They don't have hands that look like that. There's no point in the story where they come up out of the ground. I guess the font is okay that they use, but it's not super compelling. Now, I read this book when I was like 16 the first time, and I guess when I was 16 I looked at this and I thought, monster book, monster's good. And so I read it, and that was enough for me. But now, as a discerning adult looking at this, it's kind of like, it's a decent enough painting. There's nothing wrong with the painting, but it doesn't really communicate the story. It doesn't hook me and drag me in. And it's a shame, because the inside of this book is fucking stellar. Love this book, right? So don't judge a book by its cover. This cover, kind of mediocre. Book inside, excellent, right? So now on to a few new books that I have. This is what I'm reading right now. This is In the Hands of the Heathens by Aaron Beauregard. This guy is super prolific. He's putting out a book like every other day, it seems. And this one's really cool. I'm about that far into it right now. And Aaron always has the same cover artist, I believe. And this one's a really cool digital painting. And it's on nice glossy stock paper, and all my books so far have been matte finish, but this one's glossy, and I really like the way it looks, and I might be going glossy for the next one. But This is a really cool book. If you like monsters and horror, you look at this cover and it sells you. It's like, bam, monster horror, cool painting, creepy, Hands of the Heathens, what's that about? It entices you. It makes you want more. This one I just got. I did a little author swap. I sent one of my books. She sent one of her books. This is A Raven's Touch by Linda Bloodworth. Once again, really nice, crisp, black and white cover, great font, really nice illustration there. And just seeing it from a distance, I saw this on Carver Pike's show, First Chapter Freak Show, and he read the first chapter. And the first chapter was great, but also just looking at this on the screen, I was like, that looks really cool. It makes me want to read it. All right, Darcy Coates, another one of my favorites. Not an indie author, at least not anymore. She's gone mainstream, but look at that. If you want to read a haunted house book, you just see this cover, and it's so compelling. It's really nice digital art, really kind of ethereal. You got the smoke, you got the floating lady, nice fonts. Everything just sells exactly what it is, that it's a classy haunted house story. This cover sells the book. All right. Another one recently, Talia by Daniel Volpe. This guy, he's putting out a book like every 35 seconds, this guy. It's sickening. It makes me want to strangle him. Stop writing so well and so fast, Danny boy. I don't like it. But the cover is great. Look at this. It's an iconic image. She's got red eyes. She's licking a laser blade. Nice big bold lettering with blood splattered. This is a cover that sells books. People look at this online and they say, that looks really cool. I want to read that. All right. And the last one I'll show off. This one also, I saw it on Carver Pike's show, First Chapter Freak Show. He read the first chapter and he held this up, and just look at that. Simple. Red, white, and black. Got the dripping red blood. You've got this goat's head at the top. And even the title, The Pope Lick Massacre. What is that? What's a Pope Lick? Is it a place? Is it a person? Like, turns out it's a place. I didn't know that. But The Pope Lick Massacre. You just see that title and you think, what's that about? I want to know more. I want to read that. So, essentially, the cover's got to sell your book, people. Right? And whether or not the inside is good, the cover is very important. All right? So, make sure you have a good cover. If you're an indie author, it's in your hands. Right? You're in charge of putting out the cover. You can control your cover. If you're with a traditional publishing house, they're in charge of your cover. And either way, if you put out a book with a shitty cover, it communicates that either you don't care enough about your book to have a great cover, or your publisher doesn't care enough about your book, that they don't want to, spend a few dollars to have a great artist do your cover for you. So put in the time, put in a few extra dollars, make sure your cover is great, because it is an integral part to the selling of your book. Thank you for watching this week. I'm Jesse D'Angelo. I will see you next week. Have a great day. Peace out.